G'day, Bomber fans. We have trade news. It is that time of the month. I have compiled all the trade news being discussed about the Bombers, and we have got some new targets. That is fun. We love a new target. And look, realistically, there's always a bit of a little August lull. There's obviously news, but the season's ongoing. There are teams fighting for September footy. I think, our season hasn't really started yet. The off-season is when the Bombers really get going. But yeah, we're going to get to a stage where these videos are done, not monthly, but weekly. And then, of course, near the trade period, it'll just kick off. So yeah, plenty to discuss today, but there'll be more to discuss later in the year or even maybe in the month. So stay tuned to the channel. I will be talking lots of trade and draft because there isn't a lot else to discuss if you're a Bomber fan. We're going to switch it up a bit. Usually we start with the outgoing player or potential outgoing players. This time around, we're going to start the other way because the big news out of the week is Jack Silvagni. There has been a lot of talk about him being a gettable player this year. It all started with chatter around his contract status at Carlton, and then you had news that the Pies were interested. In fact, it was confirmed by coach Craig McRae. He said that he had met with Silvagni, which is rare for a coach to just come out and say that. But yeah, he said it. And then you had news that the Dogs were in the race. They're planning a meeting, according to Riley Beveridge. But to throw a bigger spanner in the works, you had Jay Clark come out and say that the Bombers, specifically Brad Scott at his own home, had already met with Silvagni too. So there are now 3 Victorian clubs really interested, at least 3 Victorian clubs. And the Bombers are right in that mix. We need key defensive coverage, I guess, and he is an injury-prone key defender, unrestricted free agent, fits right in at the Bombers. And many are saying he's as good as gone. That's always tough to read before the season ends, but he wouldn't be meeting with clubs and coaches if there wasn't something in this story. So according to Jay Clark, fees and terms weren't discussed at the meeting. But yeah, this is one that's, kicking off a little bit now. Silvagni is currently injured. His season's over. He isn't sure about his place at Carlton, and he's got other Victorian clubs, at least 3 of them, asking the question. According to Clark, Collingwood are the front runners, but that means absolutely nothing in August. We don't even have the full scope of everything with this story yet. It's only just kicked off. All you got to know is we are keen on Silvagni as a free agent. We've met with Silvagni, and there will be plenty more to talk about with this in the coming weeks. Harley Reid, another one of our targets, and yes, he is still a target. Caroline Wilson came out with a story that, she said that we had been put off by the money being thrown around, and that was put to bed by our very own Craig Votso, our CEO. He actually said that he had called Harley Reid's manager Nick Geeshan to let him know that the Bombers were still keen, and I mean, that's as big an indication as you can get that we are still sniffing around there. When your CEO comes out and says that, we've called the management of the player, that is big. The issue is more the West Coast and Reid side of things. I'm sure Reid could be convinced to come home, but it doesn't mean that he will. The cost is very high, both financially and from a draft pick point of view. And as the year's gone on, Reid and his management have actually started to show interest in life with West Coast. For the first time all year, really, the Eagles have actually... Reid's management have been offering counter offers to the West Coast contract offers that they have been put on place. The Eagles have been offering Reid flexible options for the future, both short-term and long-term, but recently Reid's camp came to the Eagles with a counter offer, one that some believed could be worth close to $20 million, which is a crazy amount of money for a second-year player. But yeah, the Bombers are still keen, quite keen. Does that mean we end up bringing him over? Probably not. I mean, the way this is going, it seems like he's staying put. Tom Morris came out and said that Reid will either sign this year or leave, which does sound silly on face value. I get what he means. He's saying that Reid is not going to be at West Coast next year on the current contract he's on. He's either going to sign a new deal this year or he will leave the club. So we're probably going to find out which one it is soon. But yeah, most seem to think he's staying put just because the deal is far too tricky to get done. It would cost a hell of a lot to bring him over. Brandon Starcevich, another free agent, Brisbane restricted free agent. So he was put on the whiteboard a while back. I think it was in June or even May. The Gettable Boys linked us to him, and no one has come out to dispute that. That's a good sign. Since then, it's been pretty quiet in regards to the Bombers and Starcevich. We are keen. That's all we really know about this. But since then, there have been other suitors in the mix. So West Coast are interested. Starcevich is originally from WA. The Bulldogs are also in the mix. They're having a dip at a few different free agents. The main things that clubs will be looking out for here with him are, one, his concussion issues. He missed the first half of the year, really, with concussion. He's played 8 games this season. The other is he actually has a desire to play midfield minutes. So he's currently a lockdown defender for the Lions, very respected one. But apparently he wants to be playing more in the midfield, either at the Brisbane Lions or another club. But yeah, he's still working it out apparently. He'll probably meet with clubs, have his exit meeting with Fagan, and then decide. Right now, though, he's just 100% focusing on playing finals footy because his club club that he's currently playing first team footy in are in a premiership push. After then is when the trade talk will ramp up. Liam Ryan, no new developments here. We are apparently keen on the small forward. Whether or not that interest translates into anything more, we'll have to wait and see with. The forward line is clearly an area we want to bolster, and we have been bolstering. What I do want to say, though, is I would hope that if we were to bring Liam Ryan into the club, we would at least be offloading names in the process, and not even just out of contract names, but maybe even some high-profile contracted names. You've got Mac Guelphy, Jade Gresham, but yeah, we're still interested in Liam Ryan. No major developments here in the last month or so, I believe. All right, Sam Draper, there's a bit going on here. So it is still a 3-horse race between Essendon, Adelaide and Brisbane. With Essendon, we have sent in a revised offer to Draper, 4 years with a trigger for a 5th on more money that was initially offered at the start of the year as well. I believe the club and Draper haven't really been having big and meaningful talks since that. With Brisbane, according to Sam McClure, they're offering 6 years. Some think their initial offer was up to $100,000 more a year than us as well. Draper was up in Noosa a couple of months ago, and it's hard to imagine that he didn't catch up with anyone while he was there. Adelaide, this is an interesting one. So Draper was obviously up in Noosa, as we know. He's also been back in Adelaide this year too. I actually ran into him at the airport on the weekend of that 90-point loss against the Bulldogs. Not the recent one, but the one before that. He's obviously from Adelaide. Initially played footy with South Adelaide. The big news out of this trade talk is the recent phone call that Matthew Nicks made to Draper. Many thought the Crows were out of the race when O'Brien signed on for 3 years, their other ruckman. But according to Footy Classified, there was a bombshell story there that told us that Nicks had called Draper personally to discuss the potential of a move to Adelaide, and Draper apparently loved the phone call. I think the words used were blown away. Draper was blown away or something to that effect. So yeah, you got Essendon who are offering less money, have less going for them in the future down the bottom of the ladder, but he's settled here. He's got his tradie brand here. He's an ambassador there. Loves the club as well. He really does love it. You've got Brisbane who are offering the most money, the most security, and then you've got Adelaide who are up the top of the ladder, his home state kind of, and he's been in contact with the coach. Now, if anyone claims they know where he's going, they're probably lying, because Draper himself doesn't know. He wouldn't be chatting to coaches if he has made up his mind. Caroline Wilson said he was going to join Brisbane. She also said that James Hird was interested in coaching again, and that Essendon were put off by Harley Reid. So, I mean, I think we just don't listen to her much, but it does seem like at the moment, most in the know-how are in the mindset that he could potentially be leaving the club. And just on that, if he was to leave, the compensation seems to either be Band 1 or Band 2 based on the reported offers. It's tough to know which one. Band 1 gets you a pick, early in the draft, and Band 2 would get you a pick at the end of the first round. The issue is no one really has a clue on where it would sit. So I've been told that the Bombers are actually planning for Band 2, not necessarily because that's where it would be, but because it's so line ball and 50-50 that it is fair to expect the lesser of the two. But also, if Draper was to leave and we were to bring in another free agent, maybe Silvagni, maybe Starcevich, that compensation would be diluted. So if you lose a free agent, you get compensation, but then if you bring in a free agent in the same window, your compensation goes down. So yeah, that is something to note. Elijah Tsatas, so something that Mitch Cleary said in passing a bit in a recent Tradies podcast, which piqued my interest, was that Tsatas was seeking a move away. Now, this was on the Tradies podcast, which is just not the place you want to be getting information from, but it was said by a high-profile journalist, so we do have to talk about it. I don't even think he said that he thinks Tsatas will seek a move away. I think from memory, he just said Tsatas is looking for a new home. And look, if that was the case, that is fair. He isn't getting game time at Essendon, a high pick, lots there. But it has been reported by the Herald Sun that the Bombers do want to keep Tsatas. He is contracted until next year. Whether that means we do keep him or not is a whole other story. But yeah, apparently, according to some, I'm looking at you, Mitch, Tsatas is looking for a new home. No clubs linked as of yet. The Bombers do want to keep him, but this is 100% going to be talked about a lot. I think he's our next most gettable player after Sam Draper. And before we go, we have the boys in contract limbo. So another Herald Sun report, or maybe the same report, who knows, even, it's hard to keep track. But on screen right now are the players at Essendon who have apparently not received a contract offer. So these guys are all out of contract this year and are well and truly in contract limbo. Guys like Brian and Vigo aren't here because they have received offers, but are waiting to see what happens with Draper. These guys on screen are yet to receive an indication that they will be playing on next year with Essendon. It doesn't mean they won't, but ideally you would have your future locked in by now. And there are also some names missing from here. I'd suspect it's a similar story for Jai Menzies, Oscar Smart, Liam McMahon, but named by the Herald Sun, I think actually maybe on the midweek tackle, are these 8 players all in contract limbo. So Dylan Shield, he is keen to go around again. he wants to be with Essendon in 2026. So does Todd Goldstein. Both these guys have said this year that they want to be playing footy or could play footy with Essendon next year. It is now on the club to decide whether or not that happens. Shield has had interest from St Kilda and GWS in the last 2 off seasons. I would suspect that if Goldstein doesn't go round again with Essendon, he probably retires. Jayden Laverde, he was shopped around last year. Now he is out of contract and faces an even more nervous wait. Alongside Will Setterfield, who despite playing fantastic footy at times this year, is no certainty to be with the club next season. Ben Hobbs is still yet to receive an offer despite playing most of the year. He's one that could attract interest from elsewhere given his age. He's still in his early 20s. Jackson Pryor, of the 8, he's probably the one that I'm most confident that the club will keep. There's not too much going on there, I don't think. And then you've got Lamont Lowell, recent debutant, still having a crack. But yeah, those are the guys in contract limbo, and that is the video. Trade talk done. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Plenty more to come. More draft chatter as well. I'll have draft videos out early next week. We've got a game tonight. I'm not keen for that. Stay tuned for the review and everything. But yeah, cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Like, subscribe, and go Bombers.